All right, now that we're all experts on how to use the Medicare checklist effectively, let's go back and look at the various pivot points that exist on this Medicare checklist that's going to help us to identify the need that needs to be addressed. Now remember, we sat down with Mr. and Mrs. Jones. We're explaining to them what's going on with their Medicare program. This is perhaps the first time anybody has spent this type of time with them, informing and educating them in regards to what the financial impact associated with utilization of the Medicare program could be for them. And so hopefully they're very grateful for the service that you just rendered for them. But what we want to be able to do is identify areas of weaknesses that may exist for them, at least initially from their healthcare standpoint. And so if they have Medicare Part A and Part B, we're going to go through this presentation with them. Now, if we look at it, we have the 23 steps that we just went through. And we were hoping for their level of involvement, their level of engagement. Hopefully they've asked us some questions up to this juncture in the presentation. And now we've just completed it, step number 23. And we did a very good job, an effective job in explaining to them how they could be financially exposed depending upon how they use their Medicare program. When we get down to here, we're going to ask them a simple question. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, brief explanation as to what's going on with the Medicare program this year. Do you have any additional questions for me? And allow them to ask questions. Maybe they'll have some, maybe they won't. But depending upon how they respond to that, we're not going to end it right there. At this juncture, once they ask us the questions, or perhaps they don't, we're going to ask them a very simple question. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, as you can see, there's some considerable out-of-pocket exposure. What have you done to protect yourself against that out-of-pocket exposure? Well, at this juncture, if you have done your warm-up correctly, you've demonstrated yourself to be the authority figure, they're going to be more than happy to share with you what they have done. They may come back to you and say, you know what? We've done something. Whatever it is they've done, be a cheerleader for them. Remember, you're viewed as an authority figure. And if they see the authority figure getting excited, getting enthused, I tell you what, that enthusiasm begets enthusiasm. They too become enthused. So what have you done, Mr. and Mrs. Jones? I've done something? That is great to hear, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Now we're going to take an assumption. We're going to assume that the something that they've done includes purchasing supplemental insurance. We want to find out what that supplemental insurance is. So at this juncture, Mr. Jones, what have you done? I've done something great. But when's the last time you had your policy reviewed? You know what, my schedule's a little tight. Why don't you go get your policy, let you and I take a look at it to see how it's designed to protect you against this out-of-pocket exposure. Now, hopefully at this point in your presentation, you're not going to get any pushback whatsoever. In fact, they're going to be happy to demonstrate to you what they've done. Now, let's assume that they go and they bring their policy back to you. When they hand the policy to you, take a look at it to make sure you know what you're looking at and to help them understand how their program is going to be designed to help them. Now, most of the information that you need to ascertain is going to be found for you maybe on a page or two. Sometimes we call it a declarations page is what we've done. But look the application over, the policy, because within every policy there is a copy of somebody's application. A lot of information we can learn on that application. Are they taking medications? We want to learn something about their health, don't we? How old are they? How would you like to know how old Mr. and Mrs. Jones is without asking them? Well, guess what? Their birthday is contained within their application that's in this policy here. So when we see that, don't be afraid to write some notes down for yourself. Let's say for the sake of argument here, we're meeting with Mrs. Jones and we analyzed her healthcare coverage and we found out that she has Medicare supplemental plan, or Medigap policy sometimes as it's referred to as. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the Medicare supplemental plan or Medigap policy that she has is Plan C. Plan C as in Charlie. We're not talking about Part C. We're talking about Plan C. So Medicare supplemental plans, as you already are well aware of, are identified by letters of the alphabet. So we're going to assume that she has Plan C. It could be with any company out there, doesn't matter. What we're going to do now is we're going to help her to evaluate her existing coverage and show her how her plan is designed to protect her against this out-of-pocket cost. At this juncture in the presentation, it gives you and I an opportunity to re-explain Medicare to someone a second time. Take your time through this exercise. Your audience is going to appreciate it. Within short order, you are going to be the expert when it comes to discussing Medicare Part A and Part B. It's almost as if you have become very proficient at a secondary language. And just because we're talking with individuals that are on Medicare, may have been on it for a number of years, they're not as proficient in their understanding of the Medicare program than we are. So we need to take our time with these individuals. So now here's our second opportunity to go back and explain, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, this is how Medicare works, but this is how your plan is going to work in conjunction with it. Do not waste that opportunity. So, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, Medicare Part A covers hospital. If you're in the hospital anywhere from 1 to 60 days, you would have to pay $1,260 per benefit period. Medicare will take care of the balance. Your Medicare Supplemental Plan C, does it cover it? Well, when you look at it, you're going to learn it does. You're going to write it out. If they're in the hospital beyond 60 days, from 61 through day 90, they would have to pay $315 per day. Their Plan C, if you recall, that's going to be covered because that's considered to be a basic benefit associated with all Medicare supplemental plans, and basic benefits will cover that cost. If they're in the hospital from day 91 through day 150, the $630 per day is going to be paid for by the Medicare Supplemental Plan C. Once again, that is a basic benefit that all Medicare supplemental plans are designed to address. When it comes to the first 20 days of receiving post-hospital care or rehab services, their Medicare Supplemental Plan C, it doesn't have to pay anything. Medicare takes care of all costs, so therefore Plan C pays nothing. However, from day 21 through day 100, there's going to be this $157.50 per day co-insurance payment. The Medicare Supplemental Plan C, it does address and cover it. So $157.50 per day. If they're in post-hospital care beyond 100 days, remember, Medicare pays nothing. They pay all costs. A Medicare supplemental plan is not the insurance product that will cover this, so therefore it pays nothing. If they're thinking about nursing home, the custodial, intermediate levels of care, Medicare doesn't pay. The Medicare beneficiary pays all costs. Once again, their Medicare supplement or Medigap plan does not cover it either. Medicare Part B, we already discussed that it's medical portion of their health care. A small sampling as to what's covered, their monthly premium, they would have to satisfy though an annual deductible of $147. Their Medicare Supplement Plan C will also address this one. Then after they pay the $147, that being their Medicare supplemental plan, Medicare will take care of 80% of the approved charge. Then the Medicare beneficiary is responsible for 20% of the approved charge. However, their Medicare supplemental plan C is designed to address that. That's well and good if the doctor agrees to the approved charges payment in full. But if the doctor does not agree to the approved charges payment in full, there may be this excess charge that's tacked on to the bill. Will a Medicare supplemental plan C take care of that? It doesn't. Not covered. Leave this open. This document, when used correctly, is going to do the talking for you. Now keep in mind when you ask them, What have you done to protect yourself against that out-of-pocket exposure? They were excited to tell you they've done something. And you asked to review their policy. And so when you looked at their policy, now they're curious, is their plan going to do what they want it to do? With each box that we fill up for them, they become very relieved that they have pretty decent coverage, or at least in their opinion they think they do. But have we found some holes with their healthcare plan? Well, to the trained eye, we found at least 2 problems with the healthcare plan. Number 1 is obvious, because we didn't fill in this box. So now we found a flaw in regards to excess charges, and we're going to demonstrate to them how they could be at risk for being exposed to the excess charges. But do you know where the other opportunity lies? Well, many of you have probably looked at this area right here. What happens if somebody's in a post-hospital care beyond 100 days, or they need to go into a nursing home? Now we can get a conversation going in connection with another type of insurance program. So based upon our initial presentation to someone, when done correctly, at least in this example here, we're able to identify 2 opportunities that we have in order to make a product presentation. We could do it in regards to this area, and what Medicare supplement plan do we have in the product portfolio kit that will cover this? Well, upon close examination, we know it's Medicare Supplemental Plan F, so we can get the conversation going in regards to that. We found the flaw. How can we solve it? It's with a Medicare Supplemental Plan, Plan F. We can also go back to this if we wanted to. Are you concerned about the cost associated with long-term care? Medicare doesn't address it, therefore it's not covered. Now we can get the conversation going in regards to long-term care insurance. What we need to do, more than one opportunity may present itself at a time, focus on the path of least resistance. My recommendation, go for the easy one first. Solve this problem first, and then once this is solved, then we can go back and solve the other one. So that's one way in which we can use the Medicare checklist. We're going to come back at a later point in time to see how we can use it as a springboard to get the conversation